Hi Celine.
Hi Celine.
Hello, Celine.
Hi Celine.
Hi Celine.
Bonjour Celine.
Hello, Celine.
Hi Celine.
Hi Celine.
Hi.
Welcome. We're gonna ask you some questions from Cineviewers.
Okay, I'm ready.
Hi Celine, this is Judith. Congratulations on this wonderful movie that you made. My question to you is, how much are you invested in this movie personally?
Well, that's a good question. I think this might be my most intimate film regarding the fact that it's shot in my hometown, in the woods where I would hang out as a kid. But mostly because it's the first time that I could build a character on someone of a ghost, on a ghost. My own grandmother is the character of the grandmother in the film is really inspired by her. And the first time she actually came on the set with the walk that my grandmother had, it felt like, yeah, a ghost coming from the past. So, yeah, I'm into the film. That kid looks a lot like me. I was really a little investigator with a tie and the hair, well, like that, you know.
Hi Celine. My name is Jasmijn and I was wondering why you keep your cast so small in your films. And I was also wondering why you chose to show the film from the children's perspective. You're an amazing filmmaker. Bye!
Oh my God, that's cute. I don't know. I've never asked myself this question. Is it that small? More. What was the other question?
Why you chose to tell the film from a children's perspective?
I don't see childhood as a subject or as a theme. So when people are telling me, "Oh, you're going back to childhood," I'm like, no, those kids are individuals, and we're just looking at them having emotional adventures. But the kids' perspective is definitely one that interests me, not because it's like this candid look on the world, but because it's pretty radical. It's very intense. So it's great for cinema characters because it's like, I mean, the desire that a kid has to know someone or understanding something is the most intense, the biggest one. So that's why I like working with kids and around kids' perspective. It's because it's really the most intense one, I think.
Hello, Celine. My name is Steven Wouterloot, and as a director of coming-of-age films, I'm inspired by your work. Your movie Tomboy is one of my favorites, and it was a source of inspiration for me for my latest movie, My Extraordinary Summer with Tess, or the French title, Ma Folle Semaine avec Tess. I was inspired by the kind of simplicity of the story, the natural, tender tone of voice, the sense of a long, hot, endless summer. So I showed this movie to my DOP and writer during the creative process. My question for you is, what was for you an important movie that gave you inspiration during your career? Or maybe specifically for your new movie, Petit Maman?
Well, my answer to this question changes all the time. A film that really changed my life was The Umbrellas of Cherbourg by Jacques Demy, because it's the first time that I understood that there was a director. It's the first time that I understood, okay, this is someone's vision. So then, because for me, when you become a cinephile, it's when you become interested in the directors, not only the films. But for Petite Maman, I was really thinking strongly about Miyazaki, and also Penny Marshall's Big.
Hi Celine, my name is Emma, and I was wondering what it is that interests you so much in creating a narrative
about the tension between women? Merci.
The other day, I watched a documentary made by Delphine Seyrig. She was a French actress and also a feminist activist, and she made this documentary in the 70s where she goes to actresses all over the world, Jane Fonda, and also French actresses, and she asks them questions about being part of this industry. And she asked this question that is like the ancestor of the Bechdel test, which is like, have you ever played a scene with another woman where you're warm to each other, when you just engage in a conversation? None of them had. There were like 30 of them in the documentary, and each time they were like, you know what? That never happened to me. And you know, that was 40 years ago, and I think a lot of actors could still be answering that. So that's why we're doing this.
Hi Celine, my name is Joy de Lima and I'm an actor and a writer, and I'm very honored to be asking you this question. And my question is, what do you think will change about the way we view men and masculinity if we were able to see it through the female gaze more often? So, male characters written by women, directed by women, even filmed by women. Do you think our view, our ideas of men and masculinity will change, and in what way?
I think the first impact would be that men would feel so much better about themselves. Because, you know, they watch each other, they look at each other, they respect each other more than their perspective more than anyone else. But is it true to their heart? Do they look good? Do they like this image of themselves, you know? We've already have a lot of examples of men being looked at by women, and frankly, I just feel like a better company. So I think the first impact would be that they would feel better about themselves. They would feel seen. You know, part of the violence of the male gaze is what, you know, what it does to the little boy's heart. And so, yeah, we would live in a more pacifist society in general. And, you know, but it's not, I mean, women can't end the war, the gender war, the sex war, the war on sex, I don't know what you call it, you know, la guerre des sexes in French, because they didn't start it. You can't be a pacifist alone. So, I don't know, this has no ending. You will edit it. I remember one of the most striking things, maybe I told you that, but one of the most striking things that happened to me during Portrait of a Lady on Fire was I watched the film next to, I was doing the bonus of the DVD, and there was the sound guy next to me, and he hadn't seen the film, he was discovering the film, and we were watching the film together, and there's no man in the film, but at some point there's a man in there who comes back and we just see his hands. And I saw the guy do that. Look at his hand. And he had a new perspective on his body and on his hand. He was like, oh, that's a man's hand. Oh my God, my hand is like that. Voilà.
Bonjour Celine. First of all, thank you very much for all the important work you're doing and for the representation you're giving me. My question is about the industry, because for us as young queer creators, it has not been easy to find funding in the beginning for our project Anne Plus, revolving around the life of a queer woman. And we've been hearing the word niche a lot. So I wondered if you still have the feeling that you still need to justify the fact that you tell female-driven queer stories. And how do you deal with sometimes having to make yourself unliked in the battle for better representation? Because I often have the feeling that people feel threatened if you stand up for the position of women in this field. And of course, I know that's misogynist, but still it's complicated and not a nice feeling. So I'm asking this for a friend.
I must say, in my industry, I never had to justify myself, but also because I'm not asking for a lot of money. And we have a special way of funding cinema in France. We're doing 50 first feature a year, 50. So I mean, you know, there's, but still within these 50, there's not a lot of queer narrative. There's more and more. If I would go with more, ask for more budget, I guess I would. But now, I mean, I'm like the tree hiding the forest, and now I don't have to justify myself, but everybody else does, so I'm not a good example. And about dealing with being unliked, that's very hard. It's very hard. You just have to, now I see it as, I just have to deal with the fact that people won't know me. You just have to give up on that. They won't know me, rather than they won't like me. And you know, when you do such a job and tell stories, and also stories that are personal, it's something to give up on that. Like they won't know me, but you have to protect yourself. So I'd rather think like that. But I wish a lot of luck to your friend.
Hallo, Celine. Ik vind het leuk om jou een vraag te mogen stellen. Ik ben zelf ook filmmaker. En al een hele tijd. En ik heb in 1979 ook een film gemaakt over 2 vrouwen die ook verliefd werden op elkaar. Ik vroeg me af naar aanleiding van jouw prachtige film, waarin een mooie liefdesscène voorkomt, waarbij breed in beeld een blote borst is te zien. Of je daar toen de tijd problemen mee gehad hebt, in de censuur of in de reacties. Omdat mensen tegenwoordig zo ontzettend een beetje preuts zijn als het gaat om gefilmde liefdesscènes, over naakt, over seks. En ik vroeg me ook af of jij iemand op de set zou dulden die als intimiteitscoördinator aanwezig kan zijn bij opnames van filmscènes die misschien gevoelig liggen.
Well, first I'm very happy to meet an agent. The backlash that the film got on the sex scene was that there was no sex scene, that the film wasn't sexy, I was prudish, so I had the opposite. And regarding the fact that we are becoming more prudish, regarding the female perspective, the film who are making films, I don't think they are becoming more prudish or more prudent. I really wanted the sex scene in Portrait of a Lady on Fire to be as it is. Also because that's how I knew I could do it really well and that it would be sexy and fun and cinematic and would be fully connected to the audience in a way. But if I had to do a more how do you call it, a more classical sex scene or a sex scene that would be more graphic, I would definitely be glad to have help from an intimacy coordinator. Like I am really glad to have a stuntman when somebody needs to jump off a ship. So so far the people I know who had experience in France, it's starting and people are saying like, oh, this is gonna take away some freedom. The experience that my actress friends have on set is that basically nobody knows what they're doing and it's just on the shoulder of the actors, and you know, it shouldn't be as any other scene. So I don't see why we would take more care of somebody when driving a car than somebody engaging in fake sex with somebody else. So it's a good thing that we're getting help, because sex on screen has been very, very boring and repetitive for the last 20 years. So we need help also artistically.
Hi Celine, my name is Jente, I'm 21 years old and I'm a film student. And my question for you was, what are some of the films that you saw when you were younger that really made you love cinema and made you want to become a director? Thank you.
One film that really changed something was a film called La vie ne me fait pas peur, I'm not afraid of life, which wasn't true at the time. Still not, maybe. And it's a film from, I think, 1994. It's a French film and about a friendship in a group of very young girls till adulthood, and it was made by a woman, and it's the first time, called Noémie Lvovsky. She's one of my favorite directors, and it's the first time that I was actually aware that I was watching something made by a woman, because maybe it was the first time that I was actually watching something made by a woman. And at that time, that's the first time that I was like, okay. Because I wanted to do films, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to be an actress. And now I was like, okay, we can do other stuff in cinema. So I thank her for that and for her films.
Hi Celine, my name is Mara, and I have a question about the final step in the making of your movies. As a fan of your work, I really enjoyed the BAFTA lecture you gave in 2020, where you explained the process of your writing, a process in which desire is always at the center. You say in this lecture that putting desire at the heart of your work does not mean to make it personal or about you, but rather to make your writing sharp and uncompromising. However, I think that this way of working is quite intimate. It's your desire, it's where the scenes hit you, that dictate your writing. You make sure that you care about every detail of the movie, because as you say, the absence of choice will have an impact. So that makes me wonder about how the release of the movie makes you feel. Does the amount of thought and care that you put into the movie give you a sense of certainty, of confidence even, about the result? Or does it perhaps also make you feel vulnerable to put something so honest, so radically you, out into the world for others to take, interpret, make their own, and possibly criticize? So in short, my question is, how do you experience the moment of sharing these desires with the world?
Mara, would you be my therapist? That's a great question. It's really a way to care about every detail. To be a controlling director is really to put as much love as you can in an image. So then, of course, you're vulnerable, because then it's not about loving what you do, it's about putting a lot of love into it. And then how is it received? But you know what? Pretty used to have desires that are not very welcome, whether it's cultural or, and so I try not to suffer from it. I focus on, it's always a strong response. Nobody's like, I don't care. It's either, it's passionate. So I guess, if it's passionate, it means that this desire is hitting hard. And it's exhausting. And it does make you vulnerable, but also you feel very, very, you're not alone anymore with your desires. All of these questions actually show it. So I still recommend it. I was glad to meet some of you, and I'll be back.